At the speech that I gave last month at the Vigil for Orlando in downtown Saugatuck, I said that some of my friends in town said that they would not be attending the vigil. And the reason for that is because the vigil involved prayer. And they said to me they were sick and tired of prayer being the immediate response to every mass shooting in the world. And it's true, every time there's been a mass shooting, we see immediately political and religious leaders get up in front of the media and they ask us to pray. And we see on social media right away hashtags trending that say, pray for Paris, pray for Orlando, pray for Nice. And you may remember after the attacks in Paris, the New York Daily newspaper had as its front page headline in big bold letters, "God isn't fixing this!" exclamation point. Now you can understand why people would be fed up with what they believe is the ineffectiveness of prayer. But I am here to tell you that I believe that most people in America today do not understand the practice and the power of prayer. Prayer is not pleading to an old man with a long gray beard who lives up in the clouds and asking him to come down and magically fix things for us. Prayer is not asking a Middle Eastern man with long hair and sandals who died 2,000 years ago to come back to life and to save everything for us. Of course, that sounds ridiculous, but that's what most people think of as prayer, and that's why they roll their eyes when we say pray for Paris. They don't see it as being effective. But that isn't prayer. Prayer is very misunderstood. Mother Teresa herself said she misunderstood prayer for most of her life. Towards the end of her life, in her diary, in her final years, she wrote, "I used to think that prayer changed things, but I was wrong. Prayer doesn't change things. What prayer does is it changes us, and we change things." I love that because she's right on. When we're praying, we're not asking that a situation be changed. We're praying so that we can be changed and then know how to take action. Now, in the gospel today, you see the disciples say, "Rabbi, teach us to pray." Now, the disciples certainly knew about prayer. Most of them were Jewish. So they grew up hearing prayers and learning prayers in the temple and in their home. So what did that question mean? Well, what it meant was they saw Jesus just returning from prayer. And if you notice that in the Gospels, often when Jesus goes to pray, he goes off alone by himself, either out into the desert or up to a mountaintop. And when he comes back, the disciples notice that he's transfixed. He's full of light, and he has the power to heal. He's so full of love and peace and joy. And what this question means, teach us to pray, is, how did you do that? Because I want that too. I want to be transfixed too. So teach us how to do that. They didn't want those traditional rote prayers that they grew up with that they found ineffective. They saw the effects of Jesus' prayer on him, and they wanted to learn it too. And in fact, it was interesting because in the gospel, they don't say, "Jesus, teach us to pray as you do." They say, "Teach us to pray as John taught his disciples." Because they knew that Jesus learned how to pray from John the Baptist. John the Baptist was Jesus' teacher, Jesus' guru. That's who Jesus learned from. And John the Baptist was not a traditional rabbi in the temple. John the Baptist was just the opposite of that. He was completely non-traditional. He was a wild man who ate bugs and lived out in the wilderness and was a hippie type of guy. And for John the Baptist, prayer wasn't about asking God for things. Prayer wasn't about communicating with God. For John the Baptist, prayer was about communing with God. There's a difference between communication and communing. Communing means to live together as one. That's what prayer is. That's the purpose of prayer, is for us to remember our oneness with God. That's why it says, "Be still and know that I am God." And that's why Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." He wasn't just saying he was the only person ever. He was giving us an example for us, that in prayer we could experience this oneness. That was the purpose of prayer. Now, some of you know that Sanskrit is one of the world's oldest languages. And it's used in Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism and lots of old faith traditions. In Sanskrit, the word for prayer is halal. And what halal means is seeing oneself as wondrously made. That's what prayer is. Seeing yourself as wondrously made. Just like it says in the Psalms. The purpose of prayer is to get still and remember that we are one with God, that we are made in the image and likeness of God, that we are divine. Now, we may come to prayer in our humanness. We may come to prayer with our worries, our troubles, our fears. But the point of prayer is to bring that to the light that is within us, the kingdom of heaven within you. In that prayer time, you are transforming your fears into trust. You're transforming your lack into abundance. I loved, in the words of integration this morning from Charles Fillmore, how he describes it as an umbilical cord that connects us with God, with, he says, the Holy Mother. That's what prayer is about. It is about getting still and remembering that we are connected to God through this umbilical cord that has never been cut. And the eternal life flow of the divine flows to us and feeds us through that umbilical cord. Our job is to make sure that there's nothing blocking that umbilical cord. Worries, fears, negative thoughts. That's the purpose of prayer, to still our minds and to remember that we are always connected to this eternal life flow of the divine. That is why we pray. So Jesus says in today's gospel to the disciples, you must pray in secret. You must go to that secret place, that inner chamber, the secret place of the Most High. And there you should say this. And he gives us what's come to be known as the Lord's Prayer. Everybody knows it. We grew up with it. We say it here every Sunday. And maybe because it has become so rote for us and is such a traditional prayer for us, that maybe it's ineffective for us. But for the disciples who heard it for the first time, it was powerful and transformative. Now, Jesus spoke Aramaic. There are linguistic scholars today who have taken the Lord's Prayer and who have translated it back into the original Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. And when you read it that way, you understand how powerful it was. So for example, Jesus wasn't saying, "Our Father who art in heaven." Translated into the Aramaic, Jesus was saying, "Our Mother or Father, birther of the cosmos, whose light lives within us." That's what he was saying. "Hallowed be thy name" meant, hollow out a place in me for your light to grow. And when he said, "Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven," he meant the kingdom of heaven is within you, and you are to bring it forth on earth as it is in heaven. When you read the prayer in the original Aramaic, and we're going to do that at the end of our service today, it will have new meaning and transformative power for you. Jesus was saying that prayer was about remembering that you are connected to God, that God's light is within you. And when you pray, you're getting still so that you can connect with that light. That's the purpose of prayer. Jesus says that when we do this, the door shall be opened. Now you may say, "Pastor Sal, I have been trying. I have been trying to incorporate prayer into my life. I've been trying to get still. I've been trying for the door to be open. It's not happening. I go into the quiet, and all I do is I keep thinking. I can't stop my thoughts, my negative thinking, my worries, and my fears." Jesus gave a great story example. He was such a great teacher. He knew that after he gave them this prayer, that they would say the same thing. "I've been trying, it's not working." And Jesus gave a great story about if you keep knocking, the door is going to be open. That's why he says it's about persistence. The man who goes at midnight asking for bread, asking for nourishment, sustenance. If you keep knocking, you will be fulfilled. The door will be open to you. The bread will be received. But you have to keep knocking. I love that the word disciple is part of the word discipline. Prayer is a discipline. Many of us just go to prayer when we need something. Prayer should be a part of every single day of your life. That's what it means in the scripture. It says, "Pray without ceasing." We have to discipline ourselves to pray. We must be persistent. That's why it's called a spiritual practice. And I promise that if you practice, you're going to get good at it. Anything that you practice over and over again, you do it every day, you get better at it. You get good at it. Now, I incorporated the spiritual practice of prayer into my life shortly after 9/11. I know that was a transformative time for many of us. One of the people who died on September 11th was Father Michael Judge. Some of you may be familiar with him. He was the New York City fire chaplain at the time. He was a Franciscan priest, and he ran into the World Trade Center to help, and he was killed. And there's a very famous photograph of the rescue workers carrying his body, dressed in his Franciscan garb, from the wreckage. And they made a movie of his life called The Saint of 9/11. Well, when I was a religious brother in the Catholic Church living in New York, I worked with Father Michael. And before we began our work each morning, Father Michael would say a prayer. And that prayer was, "Lord, today, take me where you want me to go. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and keep me out of your way." It's so simple, but it's exactly the purpose of prayer. It's to say, today I'm aligning myself with you. I'm attuning myself with you. I know that no matter where I go and who I meet, that I'm connected with you. So I, shortly after 9/11, began saying that prayer every day, throughout the day, for 1 year. And I wrote a book about it called Michael's Prayer. And last year at Pub Theology in Saugatuck, I shared that prayer with the group, and one of those people who was present there, who I was meeting for the first time, has been our churchgoer now, Scott Vanderschwag. There's Scott. And Scott also was so moved by Michael's prayer that he has now given us a gift. Scott has etched Father Michael's prayer into this beautiful mirror. So it has the UCC logo and then Michael's prayer there. And this mirror, this beautiful gift from Scott, is going to hang in our friendship hall. And I hope that every time you look in this mirror and see your reflection, that you will remind yourself that you are wondrously made, that you are made in the image and likeness of God, and to know that whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive. For as Jesus said, anything you ask for in my name, you shall receive. If you seek, you shall find. And if you knock and keep knocking, the door will be opened for you. Namaste.